Welcome into the Trust the Plan podcast. I'm Nick,
And I'm Preston.
and it's summertime, and the new boat's in the water.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
yeah. How'd that go? You take your first little spin around the chain of lakes.
Yep. We took several spins, and brand new boat, um, pretty nice one. Okay, and it gets delivered, and there's a couple problems. I don't want to be a complainer, but uh, one thing that keeps going wrong. It's got this computer dash, right, which is
Okay.
super cool.
Yeah.
It's not just like a gas gauge anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's got a Simrad 9-inch like iPad, right?
Okay.
So it's super cool.
Yeah.
It would be great if it didn't crash every 5 minutes. So all of a sudden it just restarts, and it takes like a minute to restart. And so I don't know how fast I'm going. I don't know how deep it is. I don't know what my RPMs are. I don't know how, it's just annoying, right?
Right.
So it should be an easy fix, but imagine if you got in the car and your dashboard went, when you're driving down the road, your dashboard just shuts down every 5 minutes.
Right.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be very frustrating. Not quite on that level, but my car has actually been acting up. Funny that you mentioned cars. And every once in a while, the radio just stops working, and I'm like, well, I want to listen to something while I'm driving.
I got a podcast maybe that you want to listen to,
Yeah.
but you should be watching on the YouTube channel
Right.
because you get the logo in the background, and we've got the great new setup here, and we've got the gallon water jug.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't know what we're talking about, that's an inside joke. So what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about a couple of things, but the main theme is going to be how a new study came out, and it says that affluent people are less aware of their risk of needing to lower their lifestyle in retirement.
Okay. So they're less aware, which means that they're spending more than the plan will allow for. So maybe when they come to see us, we ask them how much they spend, and they're lying to us, or they're unaware.
Right.
Like, how could that be?
Yeah, most likely it's the unaware part. These high earners, a lot of times they get big bonuses throughout the year. They get paid out with company stock. And as a result, as the years go on, their lifestyle becomes, oh, this bonus every year goes to a huge family trip or a huge purchase that we do. And they end up relying on this bonus. And then, when the time comes to retire, they're no longer getting the bonuses, and they're starting to realize, oh, wait a second, I needed that huge influx of cash each year in order to live the lifestyle that I want to live.
Yeah, and if Jim were here, he would probably call that a great example of lifestyle creep.
Right.
Right? So the other thing that jumps into my mind is the fact that we're not keeping track of what our expenses are. Okay.
Right.
And it's like an epidemic in America, probably all over the world.
Right.
And as financial planners, it's extremely frustrating because when we ask people what they spend, they just have no idea. So I believe episode 13 was the original Track Your Expenses and Net Worth episode.
Mm-hmm.
So you should refer back to that. If you go to peakwm.com/expenses, we have a template spreadsheet for you. Please keep track of your spending and be honest with yourself, because if you tell us that you're spending $8,000 a month, and that $50,000 bonus, it nets out to like $3,000 a month that you're actually spending, your plan will definitely not look as good, and it could be at risk of failure.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And one thing we always say is, there's no judgment. It's not a budget. We don't care how much you're spending, or we do care how much you're spending. We don't care what you're spending it on. We just want to know what's the number, because if we don't know the number and we're planning for an incorrect amount, retirement day can be judgment day when we realize this was a big mistake.
Judgment Day. Jack loves Terminator movies.
Oh, yeah.
So we were watching Terminator 2 over Father's Day weekend, and I've seen that movie plenty of times. But it also reminds me of the stock in the stock market. All these AI stocks are going crazy, kind of like the internet bubble of '99.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a parallel. It feels like it. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. But a lot of these people also have single stock risk,
Right.
right? Because like you're saying, they get their bonus in stocks, they get RSUs, they get stock options, and they accumulate a lot over these years. And we work with a lot of Google people here in Ann Arbor, and they get a lot of their share of pay in stock.
Right.
And that's great when it's going well, okay, but it's down by like half, unfortunately. Maybe
Right.
not anymore,
Right.
but down a lot. Anyway, what else did you learn about the single stock risk?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it ties in great to our concept of peak income 360. In that, these people, for example, at Google, they get a large portion of their income in Google stock, but also their regular income, their regular livelihood is completely tied to their employment at Google. So if something happens at Google, knock on wood, but layoffs or something happens, if they lose their job and the Google stock plummets, there goes both their income and a good chunk of their portfolio, and it can be really damaging.
And let me remind our viewers of Ford Motor Company. We have a lot of Ford people in the Southeast Michigan area. And when I would meet with these guys, like in the early 2000s, like say '02 through '07, Ford stock wasn't doing so well during those years. But up until that point, from like 1950 till like 1999, it was one of the best stocks on the New York Stock Exchange. It was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these Ford guys had a Ford paycheck, a Ford pension, and they owned all Ford stock in their SSIP. That's their 401 for non-Ford people.
Mm-hmm.
So they're completely tied to Ford. Well, what happened next? In 2008, 2009, the stock went to $1.
Right.
Right. So if you have all of your money tied to this company, then they start doing layoffs. Now your SSIP is worthless. And then, fortunately, the pension is always a separate entity. It's a separate qualified plan.
Right.
For instance, when GM went bankrupt, the pension plan was unaffected.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what can happen, right? And think about the tech companies right now. They've had such a great run. Okay. Well, who knows if the next 20 years, it's going to be different for them,
Right.
like much different than the past 20 years. Like that Ford example, 50 years of a great run, and now the last 20 years has been not very good.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so the single stock risk.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So continuing on that path, the single stock risk, if you've got a large portion of your portfolio tied up in this one stock, and in these examples we've been talking about, the stock tanks, all of a sudden you can go in this situation of being someone who's affluent and you think, you're on top of the world, retirement plan is going to be great. Now your portfolio is cut in half. How does the plan look now? Could we have avoided it by diversifying and going into more index-based investments, or really any other investment, to not have so much of your portfolio in one stock?
And we do have strategies we can use. We have the Schwab Ameritrade institutional team that helps us with big options contracts like this, and kind of whittling away at that position as a way to do it over time with tax benefits and collecting some extra income along the way. So whenever we have someone with concentration risk like this, it's really important to make sure we have a plan to diversify and de-risk away from that single stock.
Yeah, very important.
Well, if that's you and you'd like a second opinion, please reach out to us at peakwm.com. You can schedule online.